Welcome to a special episode of the Digital Days Gaming Podcast. Do not have Dave here for this. This is another one-off, and this time I am joined by Dugan Jackson of Tiki Pod, who is recently released Astro Aqua Kitty on the Nintendo Switch, and it is coming to the PS4 and Vita. As of this recording, it'll be available April 15th, I believe. How's it going?
Hey, yeah, good, thanks.
So, this is a sequel to Aqua Kitty Milk My Defenders, which came out in, 2015?
Maybe even before that, I think, originally. And we're not really thinking, it's not a sequel, it's kind of more of a spin-off sequel.
Spin-off, okay.
Yeah, we tell you, because it's such a different game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to think it's just going to be the same thing, but with more. It's quite a jump from the old game.
Yeah, I noticed that. I played around with a couple hours of it because it came out on the Switch a couple days ago, and I picked that up immediately, and it does feel like a completely different game in terms of the amount of depth. Do you want to explain a little bit about Astro Aqua Kitty?
Yeah, so we took the story of, I guess very loosely, we took the story of the old game, because the old game had the cats Milk Mighty Under the Sea, which is a Defender-like game. And the new one, we thought, well, let's make it feel as different as possible. We're going to put it into space. We're going to put them inside these asteroids that are full of water, so there's a kind of similarity there. But the gameplay in the new game, you're exploring around inside asteroids, and you have to kind of help these cats who are mining inside them whilst doing your own kind of exploring. And in the game itself, you have the basic structure is you have to go and shoot things to level up, and you get XP, and by doing that, you can get more powerful weapons, and you can equip equipment which can help sort of supplement those weapons or give you additional enhancements. And that's kind of the basic gameplay loop of having to upgrade, get new things, and unlock skills. You have pilots and engineers, which you can pick as well when you start off like characters, which is very new compared to the old game. So you can go through the pilots and engineers, pick one of each to put into your ship, and each one has different skills and abilities. So some start off being a bit faster or having a bit more armor as a basic kind of starting point. And then the skills they unlock are all unique to each character. And you might get one who's very defensive if you prefer playing that way, or you have one that has lots of energy, which is great if you want to use laser beams and other kind of energy draining weapons. Yeah, it's a lot of choice. So we hope people get a lot of sort of replay value out of the game by choosing different weapons, different items, different characters, and it plays very differently each time.
Yeah, I noticed that from the early going, picking the crew is important in how the game will progress, or like how you'll play the game specifically. It's a lot of depth that I don't know if people would expect right away if they played previous entry in the franchise. Technically,
we tried to do it as well, because we've made the difficulty level. The old games, a lot of people found it quite tough. Mm-hmm. I think that's a bit of a mistake on our part. We didn't put enough of an easy enough mode in there for people who want that sort of thing. So with the new game, we've got a whole range from very sort of casual, difficulty level where you can cruise through and you can get away with soaking up quite a lot of bullets and you'll be okay. You can enjoy playing through it if you like that sort of way of playing. And we've got a whole scale of difficulties up to the really hard if you want to be bullet hell and go for that sort of tack. So that way, yeah, it can hopefully suit everybody. And also with the level of detail, we have got all this information when you bring up your inventory screen in game. You can see all those details of all the weapons, and some of them have little sort of boost stats. So some weapons you'll pick up randomly. They might, each item can have a random. I'm trying to think of the right word. They have random additional benefits. So it might give you an extra bit of speed or an extra bullet range or something else. So all these little details. If you want to dig in, you can go through and you can kind of be very picky and try and build a loadout that really works for you. But equally, if you don't want to get into that, you can quite happily just plug these things in and you can play the game and still enjoy it without having to worry. So we're trying to make it for, I guess, suit everyone's sort of needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, making the game just more accessible with the level of difficulty, which is definitely something we're seeing more and more in games as of the last couple years. Back when I would imagine the original Aqua Kitty Milk Mighty Defender was out, that was kind of in the era where difficult games were kind of the thing.
Yeah.
Probably when you started development, that was definitely the Dark Souls era of games.
Yeah, and even going back to way before then, back in the 90s and so on, everything back then was you play through a game and you die, and it's like, oh my god, I've got to start again from the beginning. So we made a kind of concession with Aqua Kitty by making it a Defender-like, but with a grid map where you unlock things as you go. We made some concessions to the old style arcade stuff by making it a bit simpler. But you're right, even back then it was quite a high difficulty level that people thought was okay as a standard. But nowadays, I think it's all right. I think if we tried to do this game back then, I think I would have myself gone, I don't want to have easy mode. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Make it challenging and make it hard, and that's what you do. But nowadays, I think, especially when you don't have much time, a lot of people play games and they want to play a game and they don't necessarily want to play it for a year because they've got lots of things to play through. They've got lots of other things to do in their lives. So sometimes people just want to churn through and get the game, enjoy the story and the fun of what they're doing, and not make it into a 6-month kind of epic challenge.
I definitely, as I've gotten older, have found myself lowering video game difficulty. Like in my teens, I was all with going into the extra hard mode, extreme difficulties, and then as I'm getting into my early 30s, I'm like seeing myself just like, hey, you know what, medium or the easy difficulty.
It's fine.
Yeah. I have limited amount of time to play, so I want to make sure I'm not frustrating myself.
Yeah. Totally.
So originally, when we talked on Twitter, because we go back and forth on Twitter probably for a couple years now. This is probably the most in-depth conversation we've had, but we've been like Twitter friends for a while. We were going to do this interview late last year, but I believe development got in the way of that, and also the COVID situation, because I know my schedule got
up. And definitely, the development of this game has been longer than we anticipated. So it was a real sort of I hate the word crunch, but it was a real push.
How long would you say this has been in development?
It's been on and off a bit over time, but it could be like over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
In all. But it's a bit difficult to say exactly. We haven't actually tracked the exact time we were always on it. But it's been a long one, and longer than it should have been. I think it's turned out well because of that time that's been put into it. But I think at the beginning we were probably being a bit too ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a bit not realistic enough, which is a common problem with game development.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, hey, let's make this. And it's like, oh my goodness, what are we doing?
It's the problem of having people that enjoy video games also developing video games. There's always something to add or tweak.
And not having an external producer telling us to stop, which is very helpful in bigger companies. You have people to tell you, hey, that's it.
Yeah, there's always someone to just be like, this is the hard date, and then when you're in charge of it.
Regardless, it's a difficult thing. Because you've got to be realistic about making the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't want to cut everything just to get it finished, because that would be bad.
Yes.
So
when you talk about your team, like how large of a team do you have? Or at TQ
Tiny. It's me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the core team is basically me and another gentleman called Gabor. He works abroad. He lives in Hungary at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the UK. And it's just basically us two. Full time on it, and then we have additional people who help out when we need it, such as Mark Day, who uses the name, the sort of company name Electric Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with Cody Carpenter to do the music, and then Mark also did the sound effects. But he didn't do it at the beginning. He kind of came in towards the end. We got everything in and working, and then he came along and did. Both of them did their work and got all that lovely audio in. And then the character artwork was done by David Hankin, who I worked with. No, both Mark and David I worked with different companies years ago. So they're kind of guys I know from previous projects. And they're really good because I know what they can do and they can do it well. So they're really reliable people to get in to do the job. And, get it done well. Yeah.
Is it mostly the same team from Milkmine Defenders, or is it a different outside of you
so
specifically?
Before with Milkmine Defender, it was me and Gabor and I doing it. And again, Gabor does the coding, and we kind of share design, and I do mostly art stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we both sort of work on the design together. And with that one, with Aqua Kitty, the original one, we worked together, and then Mark did the audio. And then for the PlayStation port, Gabor was busy doing his sort of contracting work. So another old friend called Will, he actually came and did the port. I think in about 2 months he did the Vita and the PS4 ports.
Okay.
Well, we upgraded because we took the old PS Mobile game, we upgraded it,
mm-hmm.
it was more complicated now, because we had the PS Mobile version originally, then we did the Xbox Live Indie Games, the XNA version, I think, after that, and then we did the Steam version, and then I think that turned into the PlayStation upgraded DX version. It's all very drawn out. It wasn't a nice, neat way of developing things, because normally you want to do all these versions at the same time, but because we were odd jobbing, doing contract jobs and things in between to kind of keep the money coming in, we'd do a version, and then you want to do a version on PlayStation, but then they say, can you add anything new? And then you go, okay, well, we're adding all these extra things to make it look more special. And then you get to the Switch, for example, and they say, can you add some more things? And so sort of make sure you can get onto the console. And they didn't demand these things, but a lot of the time they'll say, what can you bring to the console? What new things can you do? And so you bring these new things, but it's not always easy to backport it to the older ones. So we end up with quite a straggly, different versions of Aqua Kitty all across these different consoles. And
yeah, I remember specifically with Milk My Defender, it was my favorite use of the speaker and the controller in terms of.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, console-specific features are always interesting to look at, especially when Aqua Kitty came out. That was probably year two into the PS4.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, the second Christmas or something.
Yeah, so I just remember that being one of my favorite instances of a developer using that speaker. Is there anything specific that Astro Aqua Kitty does on like the Switch with the rumble or anything?
No, we do normal rumble, the same as the other ones that do rumble, not Vita. Mm-hmm. The only thing with the Switch, I'd say, is it's slightly weaker, the rumble, because it's got different, sort of motor mechanisms inside, and when you try and do, you can't do sort of thumping rumbles and that very easily, I don't think. It kind of gets whiny when you try and crank up the frequency.
Yeah, some games can be kind of loud.
I think that's also pretty relevant for the battery too, because you don't have a massive, motor in there thumping away, because it'll drain the battery too fast. So
you talked about like having to do contract work for studios. It seems like when you go to like the website for the studio, it shows like the games you made, and then also doing contract work. Is the contract work why when you talked about Astro earlier, like it's hard to track the development cycle because you guys had to like jump on and off of the game to do contract work? Is that?
Yeah, Astro Aqua Kitty wasn't. I haven't done any contract work for actually quite a while. A lot of the stuff that's on the website is kind of or I think it's like before and after Aqua Kitty 1. Whereas with Astro, I wasn't. I don't think I'd done any contracting during that. But we had one project, which was Iron Cryptical arcade version. That took up a bit of time, but that was really early on, so I had to jump into a bit of that.
When it comes to like the release for Astro, it seems like you're targeting a decent amount of platforms: with Switch, PS4, Vita, Xbox, and PC. Let's talk a little bit about the Vita specifically. Yeah. When Vita development seems like now one of those things where the market might not fully be there. Is this just you really like the Vita, or you want to support that community? Or
we started off doing it because we really like the console, and we think, we thought it'd be nice to fit it on there. Why not? And it wasn't a big problem when we started off. We kind of knew what the Vita was like. We knew we could, get the game on there reasonably and not have it as because we didn't want to do a version which was kind of like a, sort of cut down version for Vita. We wanted to make sure we could deliver the same sort of, experience, for want of a better word, on it. And as development went on, we kept on maintaining the Vita, all the builds on the different consoles and Vita. We thought, well, let's keep it going. We had a niggling doubt that it was going to go at some point. We didn't know when. But when we had things like the E3 shows and suddenly Sony stopped mentioning Vita, they wouldn't promote any new Vita games, and I think those are the kind of the warning signs, that something's going to happen at some point. And unfortunately, that time has happened now. It's caught up at last.
Yeah, there was. I've been to the previous 6 E3s, so I got to see Prime Vita life, where the booth was mostly Vitas and PlayStation's running indie games, and then see that shrink until I think it was 2018. Me and my colleagues were just on hunts to see where a Vita could be found on the show floor as things goes. Like, we would see them every once in a while, but it would definitely be one of those things. But the people that are still playing Vita, are very passionate about it. And the news that came out a couple weeks ago about the Vita store closure, what was your reaction to the Vita store closing in the summer?
Yeah. In a way, it's kind of like, oh, well, here we go. What can you do? Yeah, we weren't too, we're not going to beat ourselves up about it because it's sad, especially when we've just got the game coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, well, I don't think we can do anything about it without it sound downbeat. It's not like we can, lobby Sony to bring it back. I think they're going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is just write it out well, put a smile on your face, and go, right, okay, let's make the most of it, and yeah, enjoy it whilst it's there.
Well, that's part of the reason why I picked it up on the Switch. Almost like a spiritual successor to what the Vita was, and better in some ways. It's a real
shame with the Vita, because the Vita's a lovely size. Like, it's a bit smaller than the Switch. It can fit in your pockets a bit better. I much prefer it to PSP, because I had PSP years ago and used to be doing development on that. And I like PSP, but I always found the UMD thing a bit of a pain.
Yeah, the UMD and that analog stick was always the worst on the PSP.
Whereas the Vita feels so nicely made, and it's got a really nice screen. I've got an original one with the OLED.
Same. I occasionally plug it in just to make sure that battery's okay. Something I always have to remind my friends that still have Vitas, like, just charge it from time to time. Just keep it alive, keep it going. Basically now, with the game releasing this week, you just have a couple months left on the Vita. There definitely seems like there is like a group of people, I'm one of them, who now are going to overly shop on the Vita and the PS3 and the PSP store.
Yeah, totally. The PS3's got so much good stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's, yeah. And then that's how the worry is, once you get all this stuff, how can you back it all up? I can't remember. Can you back up things on a Vita onto PC?
You can. There is like a Vita app, but you can also put all those games on your PS3 and then back up the entire PS3.
Oh wow!
Which helps, and then you can always use that to restore.
Cool.
But the PS3 is a whole other chaos of, like, the CMOS battery dies or PSN stops working and all that DRM stuff.
Well, I know I've had that problem even on PS4 before. You turn it on, you haven't used it for a while, and it goes, "Hey, you can't use any of this stuff because we can't connect to the internet." It's like, oh god.
Yep.
Great.
DRM is definitely something that is a problem that we knew was coming. We just weren't expecting that much or that soon.
I think when you have a new console coming out and it's got lots of really cool stuff, it can distract people enough to, for most of the time that can kind of work. Everyone goes, "We run the new console. We're not too worried about the old one," but sadly, when there's a lot of good stuff on the old console, it doesn't really work. You want that stuff to stay alive. You want it to be working forever, like Super Nintendos and PC Engines and Mega Drives. You can always turn those on, shove a game in, and you know it's just going to work.
Yeah, you were able to get a couple games made through limited run, or Aqua Kitty Milk Mining Defender was able to be physically released, correct?
Yeah, a long time ago.
A long time ago.
Was cool.
How was that feeling to have like a physical, like, we're talking about like DRMs killing everything, but like having a physical copy of that?
Yeah, that was really cool. It's kind of weird because for years I've been working with friends at games companies working on not always particularly cool games. Sometimes you work on some really trashy stuff, whatever the company has to work on, and then to suddenly get in a position where you can actually release your own games on a console was great. And then to be in a situation where we can get physical ones was amazing. It was really cool. Sort of thing you just don't. You kind of get. I think you kind of get used to the fact when you're working at companies that you're not going to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. But then again, even then, thinking back, because it has been a while, working at places where you get a copy of something you've been working on is really nice, especially when you've enjoyed working on it.
Oh, for sure.
It didn't always happen, but most of the time you would get a copy.
Yeah, it just I've been recently getting like addicted to keeping track of like limited run games, and I think it's super rare games. This digital future. I mean, our show is called Digital Days Gaming, but the digital future definitely scares me enough to where I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna go out of my way to try and track down physical copies of games just to be on the safe side. And
yeah, so I don't know how it's going to work with emulation, because with things like Super Nintendo and Mega Drive games, they all get backed up and work their way into an emulator in some way. But I'm not sure how easy it's going to be in the future for PS3 and so on.
Yeah, no, emulation's coming along for the PS3, but it's still a mighty task to get it actually functioning. But we're probably not too far away from it being more consistent. probably several years away from it being as easy as some of the older, Super Nintendo, Sega emulation. Let me hit you with a little bit of a little harder question. When it comes to like video game preservation, do you feel there's do you have any feeling on whose responsibility it is? Is it like the platform holders? Is it developers? Or is it the fans?
That's interesting. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know. In a way, the developers could do it if they have their game. If they can port it to something else, they can keep it alive. But I wouldn't say it's their responsibility to have to do it. It's it's not always possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whoever's motivated to do it, it's their responsibility.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Yeah, if people want to keep it alive, then get off your backside and work on it and do it.
Because even though you're part of a small team, the fact that you're releasing the game on multiple platforms at least gives some sort of safety net of like this game will live on as these platforms come and go.
Yeah, totally.
Just a little bit longer. Is that motivation for releasing on so many different platforms, or is that just you just like releasing on as many things as possible for financial reasons?
It's nice to do it for a number of reasons. It's nice because not everybody has every console. Some people are Xbox people. Some people want to be Switch people, and so on and so forth. So it's nice that you can say, well, everyone can get access to this game. I think that's good. There's also a financial reason, because if we can get it onto different consoles, that's good for us if we can sell more units, because that money comes back to help us do more work in the future. So that's another reason for doing it. That's the main two things really. So making sure that everyone can get access to it, which is cool. And then if we get extra money from doing a port to, Xbox or something else, then that's great too. So it works both ways, because that means we can make more games and then bring more games to that console again and again and again in the future.
That makes sense. That's a good answer for the many reasons you'd want to release it on as many platforms as possible. All right, I don't want to keep you too long, so I would say, is there anything you'd want to say to listeners or about Astro Aqua Kitty before we wrap up?
I hope people check it out and see what they... you can check out trailers and you can check out the website and see what you think of the game. I don't really have anything else to think about it. I don't really have a sales pitch to talk about it. But I hope people take the time to, check out the videos and things, see what you think, give it a try, talk to your friends, and hopefully people will get out there and enjoy it if you like the look of it.
Well, I'm enjoying it so far. I've played around for like an hour or two with it this past weekend, so I'm enjoying it. It's definitely, I really enjoy it on the Switch, being able to just, have it as a handheld, because I primarily use my Switch as a handheld console. I never dock my Switch for the most part, so I really like it on that platform, and I'm looking forward to trying it out on other platforms, because I like having the option of having them on multiple platforms.
Yeah, that's cool.
Any word on when it will release on other platforms? Because I know right now it's available on Nintendo Switch. It's coming to Vita this week, but it is coming to Xbox and PC in the future.
Yeah, so this week on the 15th it's PS4 and Vita. Last week was Switch. Xbox were currently working on it, so hopefully not too much longer, but it might be, might be 4 weeks away or so. We don't really know an exact date yet. We'll just see how it goes. And after that we'll have time to look at the PC version.
Excellent.
It's running on PC right now, because we've had it running all the way through. The only problem is when it comes to Steam and things, you get a lot of people who have very peculiar setups and things. And we need to make sure that everything kind of works. Rather than putting it out there and then have lots of people moaning and saying, hey, this doesn't work. We want to try and get it as rock steady as possible on all kind of weird configurations.
That's the thing that always scares me about PC game development, is talking about all the variables that go into developing on that platform.
Yeah, it's tricky, because there's always going to be some wacky, weird setup that someone's got that's gonna fail on. And the good thing is that you do have refunds on things like Steam, so you can accommodate. You're not going to totally rip anybody off or feel like they're stuck with a product they can't use, because sometimes you can't fix things, because it's very hard doing kind of QA when someone's saying, hey, I've got this kind of setup, and you can't see their PC.
Yes.
Whereas if you've got it in the room and you can then run it on the room, you can test things out and work out problems. But yeah, when it's some remote computer in the middle of nowhere with some quirky issue, it's really hard to debug it and sort it out sometimes, sadly.
Yeah, there's always. I work in IT, so I know how often stuff can break over the most mundane or random occurrence or program.
I find it hard enough just dealing with my parents, kind of, their computer breaks. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, we're going to try and work through it on the phone. So move the mouse pointer here, and
Oh, that is my hell on a day-to-day basis.
But one nice thing I'll say about Astro Aqua Kitty, come back to that again. One nice thing we found at the end is when we were doing all the testing over and over again, we were actually still enjoying it, which is kind of cool. Now, that sort of gave us hope when we released it that people would like it, because a lot of the time when you work on bigger projects, especially bigger companies and things, you work on it to death, and you feel by the end of it like you never want to see it again, because you can't be objective about it, because you've been working inside out it. So it's been really nice on this one to finish it and still feel like, hey, I can play it. I don't hate the game. That's really cool. And I think it's been nice so far. We've had a lot of feedback and a lot of nice reviews.
That's good.
Been really cool.
Yeah, I always wonder about if the developer at the end of their dev cycle can still enjoy and play their game outside of the like, hey, look, I made a thing. It's
sometimes it takes a few months. You have to kind of get distance. It depends on the game. But sometimes I've found it before is kind of, you got to get away from it for a bit, then you can come back to it and go, hey, this is still fun. This is cool.
Yeah.
But it depends very much on the game.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Again, I like the Aqua Kitty. I guess now, since there's a second game with Aqua Kitty in the name, you can call it a franchise. I like the Aqua Kitty franchise. So I really wanted to have you on. I'm glad we finally take care of it, and good luck with the release on all the platforms.
Cool, thank you.